welcome in everyone to episode 131 of the Batfoot Podcast. My name is Damon, here with Matt. This week we are going to do our annual All-Star Game ballot. We have some prospects getting called up. We have a date for the new Field of Dreams game, an update on the A's Stadium vote, and some big-time injuries to talk about. But before we get into all that, Matt, how are you doing this week?
Doing pretty good. I've had a nice week. It's been fun to watch my Braves absolutely just go berserk over the last 6 games, which has been fun. But yeah, it's been a good week. Everything's going well. How are you doing, Damien?
I wish I could say it was as much fun watching my baseball team this weekend, or just week in general, because it was not. Getting crushed by the Giants, a rival, is never fun. Getting swept, losing one of those games 15-0. Not been a fun week on the old baseball side for me, but outside of that, it's been a nice week and weekend. Hope everyone had a nice Father's Day. I know I did, was able to go to breakfast and watch a movie with my dad this weekend. So I don't take that for granted, because I know a lot of people don't get that opportunity anymore. So hope everyone that has a father had a great Father's Day. And if you've lost yours, just hope that you were able to have a fun day anyways. But what do you say we go ahead and jump right in and talk about the number one overall pick from the 2021 MLB draft, and Henry Davis getting called up to the major leagues this week.
Yeah, Henry Davis is an interesting player. He came in as a catcher from the in the draft. I believe he's out of Louisville, and number one pick. There was a lot of question about whether or not he should be the number one pick that year, as there was a couple guys. I don't remember which prospect it was that year, but that might have been the Marcelo Mayer, Jordan Lawler year.
Yep.
And, they were both really expensive high school guys. So Pittsburgh took him as the number one pick, as they really liked him. Plus, he was also he was a little bit cheaper than the two high school guys. But he's hit really well in the minors. There's been a few things with his swing that I think some scouts were a little bit concerned about. But, it sounds like he's probably not going to be able to – I don't think he's playing behind the plate at all now. He wasn't able to stick at catcher, so that's kind of a bummer when you picked him first overall, but the bat is probably good enough to play. We'll see what happens with it. He was striking out a pretty good bit at AAA, but he hits the ball hard, and, high on base percentage guy. I think he's going to do well, and it's good to see the Pirates, that this wave of prospects they've had, bringing them on up. So definitely good on them, and we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, hopefully he's able to come in and have an impact. And, the Pirates don't need him really to stick behind the plate, because they still have Andy Rodriguez, who will probably be up here in the next few months as well. But it's good to see Davis, who has battled that injury bug just a little bit, finally, now that he's healthy, kind of get that call up to the major leagues. And he's looked pretty good in the one game that he had so far. I saw he roped that double down the left field line. So let's see if he's able to keep that up. But let's go over to the Cleveland Guardians now, who actually called up a catcher that stuck there in Bo Naylor. He was officially called up this weekend, and then Gavin Williams will be called up tomorrow, which is one of their top pitching prospects.
Yeah, Bo Naylor is a pretty cool prospect. He played in the World Baseball Classic this year. It was fun to see him there, and he's a good looking prospect, good catcher. I think he's it sounds like he's going to stick there. He hit pretty well in the minor leagues. AAA this year, had a 122 WRC plus. Had a very low batting average on balls in play, but his plate discipline numbers were really, really good, and he's got really solid power. So you would think that he'd probably be able to, those numbers he might have been just a little bit unlucky in AAA as well in his 60 games there. So he got the call, and, he's played a couple games, hadn't really done a ton yet at the big league level so far, hadn't gotten a hit yet, but although he's walked a couple times. So we'll see. Hopefully he, we'll see what happens with him. And I think he's a good prospect. And then you look at Gavin Williams, this guy throws gas. I remember when he was in the draft, he was picked right around where the Braves were picking, so I was kind of keeping my eye on him. There were a lot of Braves fans who were really into him, and he throws really, really hard. He's generally been in the strike zone in the minors. At AAA this year, he was a little bit wild in his 9 starts. I think that, and then just injury concern with him, were a couple of things to worry about, but it'll definitely be interesting to see him at the big league level, especially with the way that the Guardians have been able to develop pitchers, because it seems like just about every one of these guys that they bring up ends up being a really, really good pitcher.
Yeah, the Guardians are one of those teams that just develop pitching and just always find a way to develop some of that. And we'll hit into the reason here in a little bit of why Gavin Williams is going to be potentially a big piece for that Guardians rotation so far. But also a cool story for Bo Naylor. He gets to play with his brother Josh Naylor, who's also on the Guardians.
Yep.
So that's going to be a pretty fun to have the two brothers up in the major leagues playing together. So it's a really fun story. But we mentioned last week the new Field of Dreams game that's going to happen between the Giants and the Cardinals at Rickwood Field next year. We finally got the date for that game. It will be Thursday, June 20th, 2024. So I think they've made the habit of making these games on a Thursday night, so we should have had a little bit of an inkling into that, but that's at least when the game will be. So if you want to try and get tickets, that's when you can look for, or we'll talk about obviously when it'll be on TV and all that. But the A's stadium vote as well, we wanted to hit on this one. The last week we had said that it had went past the first panel and had to go to the state assembly. The state assembly voted to approve it, a 25-15 vote. They amended it, and it has been now sent to the governor, Joe Lombardo's desk, who has been a big proponent of them moving there. So it's pretty much all but confirmed that the A's move to Vegas will be official, because as soon as he signs off on it, Manfred was even talking this week and seemed pretty he was dunking on the Oakland fans and stuff.
I was going to say that comment. I was going to bring up that comment that Manfred made.
Where did I put that one in the other chat? I did.
I don't know, but basically what he said was that they were asking him about the reverse boycott that the A's did. He basically said, "Yeah, it must have been nice for the A's to finally have an average major league crowd for a game." It was like, my God, that is just. I mean, it's kind of true, but well, yikes.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. It's he said, I mean, it was great. It was great to see the atmosphere. What is this year an almost average Major League Baseball crowd in the facility for one night? That is a great thing. That's what his quote. But obviously, him and the owners seem like they're going to unanimously vote it in, and obviously Joe Lombardo's going to sign off on it. So here, probably within the next month or two, we'll officially have the Las Vegas A's moved confirmed.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see over the next couple months too, like what their plan for transition is. Are they going to stay in the Coliseum until the new stadium's ready, or are they going to stay a couple years and then go, to a different ballpark there, or are they going to just go straight to the AAA ballpark in Vegas for a little while? I mean, honestly, like with the attendance they're getting in Oakland, like playing at the AAA park, they probably, they probably get more fans there anyway. So.
Yeah, I think their lease is through next season.
Okay.
In the Coliseum, I want to say it's either 2024 or 2025. I think it's 2024 though, because I don't think the Vegas Stadium was supposed to be ready until 26 or 27.
Yeah.
So I know that they were saying that there was going to be a couple years, but we've seen, when Buffalo or when Toronto had to play in Buffalo in their minor league park, like we've seen it be a thing that could possibly happen. So I would assume that if they don't come to some sort of agreement in Oakland, that they would go. Now, what happens with the Aviators? That also is another story. So,
and the A's could also, I guess, play at their spring training facility in Arizona too, because I'm sure that they've got a pretty good setup there, and it's probably got a lot more of the major league amenities there that they don't have at
that's true
AAA. So we'll see if that happens, but.
Absolutely. So one other little miscellaneous note that we wanted to hit on is just that the tear that the Cincinnati Reds and the San Francisco Giants have been on. The Reds have now won 9 games in a row, and they've came all the way up to take the NL Central lead so far. And they also got the return of Joey Votto last night, so another addition to that lineup. And then obviously the Giants won 8 in a row. We mentioned how they swept the Dodgers this week. They've now taken over second in the NL West, and they're 4 games behind Arizona for number 1.
Yeah, this was a huge week for both teams. The Reds, getting all this hope with all these young guys they brought up recently, has been really fun for them. They've just been really exciting to watch. Lots of close games, some walk-off wins. It seems like every day they're bringing up another rookie that's doing really well. And then that's been a lot of fun. Playing in the NL Central, you never know. They're 38-35. They're actually in first place right now. And with the Brewers' struggles offensively and their pitching injuries, and then with how far behind the Cardinals are right now, and you just don't trust the Cubs or the Pirates. Like, I mean, you could see the Reds maybe figure out a way to win here. And then you look at the Giants. I mean, that win streak's huge for them, and their playoff odds are now up to 63%. And they have a higher chance of winning the division than the Padres. And I kind of had a feeling the Giants would find their groove at some point. A lot of people were writing them off early, and they've got a pretty good team. They don't have the superstar power, but they've got a solid team. I do think this is a wild card caliber team, especially with the struggles of, like teams like the Mets and the Phillies that have had so far, the Padres. Like, these are the teams that we were thinking would be the wild card favorites. But I mean, right now, I mean, the Giants have a huge cushion over the Mets, and of course the Marlins are there too. But I mean, I don't expect the Marlins to stay up there. Although I think we talked before the show, they've won like 5 games in a row or something. So you never
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah, the Giants are always been one of those sneaky teams that always gets more out of their talent. I mean, look at the 2021 season when they
yeah,
won 110 games or 111
yeah,
games or
100
something. It
was it
was
108. It was 108, and the Dodgers won 107.
107. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah,
But nobody expected them at that point. And, so, I mean, it's a good story for both of these teams, especially for the Reds after the dumpster fire. I mean, we were talking about how they were potentially the worst team in Major League Baseball before the season started and how they should just sell off what they could. And I mean, even a few weeks ago, I mean, you have the big time, reporters in the game mentioning how, Alexis Diaz could be a big time trade target for contending teams and the Mets and this and that. And it's like, well, now they're over 500. They're leading this. The Reds might be a buyer at this
yeah.
deadline. Like,
Well,
it seriously can happen. They have so
and
much talent on that middle infield, and like that they can
they've
afford to purge a couple of them.
they've
Even.
got a log jam in the middle infield, and we've seen this from the Reds before too. I remember back in 2019, they were kind of on the fringes of being a contender that year. They really weren't a contender, but they were like, just, if they catch fire, they might. But they felt like really good going into the following season, and they went and traded for Trevor Bauer at the deadline.
Yeah,
Like, I think that's the type of thing you might be able to see from the Reds here at this deadline, where they might go make a play on a multi-year type guy if there's one available, which that seems like it's probably going to be a big question if there's one available. But we'll see what happens there. I think I think that's been a lot of fun, and it's been crazy too, just the fact that they really have had some bad luck with some pitching injuries. Lodolo's been banged up. Hunter Green's hurt now. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I mean, Ashcraft has been bad, where you kind of thought if they were going to go, maybe he has a breakout year or something. But a lot of their bats have been good. Had breakout years, and the young guys have all hit. And then now you bring Joey Votto back, and his first game back, he hits a home run, and you're like, man, this is
yeah,
crazy. So it'll be fun to see if the Reds are able to keep this up.
yeah. I mean, this just tells you what the energy of a young, super talented prospect can bring. Because really, this run happened right when they brought Ellie up, and it just, obviously he's been insane. Like, he hit one to first base the other day, a ground ball to first base, and he beat the first baseman to the bag. And like, there was another one that was like a routine 2 or 3 hopper to third base, and he beat it out easily. And it's like, maybe sometimes that energy of bringing that young player can do something for a team, and it's done worlds for the Reds so far. So it's going to be a fascinating story to watch here in the next month or so. See what the Reds do, and then potentially into that deadline.
Oh yeah.
So let's go ahead and jump over to our injury part of the show. And Aaron Judge had to get a PRP injection into that toe that he hurt when he ran into the gate at Dodger Stadium there. Hasn't even started baseball activities yet. I did see Aaron Boone said that he had a breakthrough today, but the swelling's kind of gone down. But still, there's no real firm timeline on when Aaron Judge is going to come back. And right now he's been the the entire Yankees offense as he was last year.
Yeah, and you say it's been the entire Yankees offense. We've seen what's happened to the Yankees since he's been out. The Yankees look horrible right now. They've not played well. They can't score. And their pitching staff is a little bit banged up too. I mean, you still have Nestor Cortez is on the IL. You have Carlos Rodon still hasn't pitched, so that there might be some help on the way, depending on if you trust those guys to come back. But I mean, the lineup right now is just bad. I mean, Stanton's somewhat healthy right now, I guess, so he's playing, and Rizzo's still playing. But like, I mean, you've got just that lineup is just bad right now. I mean, there's nobody good in that lineup. Nobody hitting. Donaldson's not hitting. Volpe's not hitting. You look at the catching spot. Like Trevino has been really good defensively again, but he's not hitting. Gleyber Torres has been all right, but like their outfield's a mess. I mean, I'm pretty sure Billy McKinney's like their best outfielder right now, which is just atrocious. So they have got to get Judge back if they want to do anything. And I mean, and then in the AL right now, like, I don't know if are they in the playoffs right now if the season ended today? I think it would be the Rangers, Angel, or the wild cards would be the Angels, the Orioles, and I think the Yankees would still be the third wild card, but like by a half game. So
Uh, yeah,
they,
so they are by a half game over Houston at the moment.
yeah. So that's that's not very good. So
No, it's not, and they could always be aggressive at the deadline, but it really hasn't been Brian Cashman's mo the last handful of years to go in and make big time aggressive moves, and they kind of need the Stantons to get back to playing the way they can. You need Volpe to really kind of figure it out. You just need Judge back as well. I mean, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's not going to solve all your issues. But one bright note they do have is that Rodon is starting his rehab assignment today.
yeah, that's good news. Hopefully he makes it through healthy because he's been accustomed to getting some he's had in the past where he's come back on rehab assignments and had setbacks.
Yeah.
So hopefully he gets healthy. And you mentioned Brian Cashman. That's the last comment I want to make on the Yankees. They did not build this team very well. I mean, we kind of talked about it before the season, where if everyone stays healthy, like it could be the best pitching staff in baseball. But the fact of the matter is that like they just didn't build any depth into their roster. Like
No.
it's a mess. And you know, you look at what they've done on the deadline in the past, it seems like they don't typically make big moves at the deadline, but they've made in the past couple of years, they made kind of panicky moves. Like last year when they traded for Frankie Montas, who was injured. Well, he's injured again, and they gave up a lot for him. Like, and then the same thing kind of happened last year where they traded a pretty good pitching prospect for a reliever because they had some bullpen injuries. And, I don't know if they're going to, reach for somebody prospect wise, or trade wise this year, but they've kind of been it's been a little bit uneasy, and I know Yankees fans are really not feeling very good right now. I mean, this team right now for the Yankees is like the Yankees haven't finished below 500 in a long time. This team, if they don't get healthy, could be under 500 by the end of the season. They just aren't playing well.
Yeah. It's big time in Yankee land, with people freaking out now. So we'll see what they do here. But we mentioned about Gavin Williams earlier and why it would be a potential big deal for Cleveland, and that's because Tristan McKenzie went back onto the IL with a UCL sprain. He estimated that he'd probably be shut down for about a month before starting to throw again. So you're looking at probably another month or so after that as build up. But it's a big time blow for the Guardians, who were trying to hope to stay in touch with Minnesota there, and you kind of need that. They're built on pitching and not really much offense, and you just lost one of your best pitchers.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Cleveland. They haven't been able to get healthy on the mound this year so far, and this is just another hit there. I mean, Tristan McKenzie last year threw 191 innings of 2.96 ERA ball. I mean, that's really, really good. This year, he's only thrown 10 innings. He's looked all right, in his 10 innings, but I mean, it's tough. It's tough for the Guardians right now. Their offense isn't good enough to withstand some of these pitching injuries. So they really need to get healthy there. And I mean, this isn't when you hear UCL sprain, that is not a good sign. So
No, it's not. I mean, those are always really, really finicky issues that can turn into a lot more if not
yeah.
taken care of the right way and rehabbed and rest as much as possible. But next up, we're going to stay in the AL Central, and we kind of hinted on it last week with Vinny Pasquantino. We knew he went on the IL. We weren't sure the severity of it, but Jeff Passan reported last Wednesday that Vinny Pasquantino tore his labrum in his right shoulder, and he's headed for surgery and out for this season.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. He's a really good player, and young guy. You would like to see him stay healthy and continue to develop at the big league level, and it's difficult. Hopefully, he comes back. His shoulder heals up normally and comes back strong. I know shoulders can be very tricky, so hopefully he gets healthy next year. Of course, for this year's purposes, like I don't think it means all that much to the Royals. You just hope that his long term, health is in good shape, and that next year he can come back, be back to himself.
Yeah, I mean, you hate to see a young team like that's already been struggling lose one of their better players. So hopefully he's able to come back. But speaking of losing one of your better players, the Houston Astros will be without Yordan Alvarez for at least 4 weeks. I think it's a hamstring issue, if I'm not mistaken.
Don't remember.
Let me double check on that one. But Yordan is a big part of that offense, and one of the best hitters in the game, and to lose him for at least a minimum of 4 weeks. It was an oblique injury, by the way.
Okay.
Which those are very, very finicky issues as well.
They can be tricky for hitters.
Yeah, and it could be easily irritated again. So the Astros team that they've been solid all year long, but losing one of their best and consistent hitters and power hitters in the game, that's going to be a big blow for them.
Yeah, and you look at the Astros, and it's starting to get concerning for them because, for one thing, that division has been really good. The Angels are playing really good baseball right now. Like, they're 41-33. Ohtani is absolutely going off, and they're a game and a half ahead of the Astros. And then the Rangers have just been going crazy all year. So, the Astros are in third place right now. And, I mean, if you look at this team with the injuries that they have in their pitching rotation, Garcia's been out, and they got Framber Valdez is still really good. Christian Javier's been really good, but Hunter Brown's been a little inconsistent lately. And I mean, you're starting JP France and whoever else in their fifth spot right now. And then you look at their lineup, and with the injury to Alvarez, I mean, this lineup's got a lot of holes in it. I mean, you've got, Jake Myers, Martin Maldonado's in there every night, like Corey Julks, Jeremy Pena, Jose Abreu, who's got like a sub 600 OPS, and Yanier Diaz, who's a rookie. I mean, Jose Altuve, Bregman, and Tucker are really the only big-time guys in this lineup at the plate right now. And even the three of those guys haven't really been at their normal selves this year at the plate. So, the Astros are struggling right now. They've been struggling to win a lot of games lately, and I mean I don't want to call it panic time for them, but they need to get healthy and they need to start hitting, because right now, like, it's not looking good for them. Their playoff odds are sub 50% right now for the making the playoffs this year.
That's crazy to say. For Houston, who a lot of teams we had expected to win that division this year, but like you said, that pitching staff was kind of our concern coming in to the season, and then the offense obviously missed getting Altuve, broke his thumb like the day before the season or a week before the season started. That wasn't great. And then Bregman usually starts slow, and he started to figure it out a little bit the last month or so. But, Yordan was kind of just that anchor that they needed, and, you're missing that now. So they got to find some way to replace or at least supplement some of that production here for a while, and try and make it to where maybe we see them make one of the early moves to get a pitcher in there or something. But moving on to, we talked about Cincinnati Reds earlier, and Matt mentioned Hunter Green being out. He has a hip injury. They're hopeful it could only be a couple weeks, or will only be a couple weeks injury, but right now they aren't quite sure if it might be longer than that.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Hunter Green was pitching well. 3.93 ERA on the season, 73 innings. His FIP 3.58. Really solid second year for him. His home run rate has come down a lot this year. He's done a better job of, his fastball shape. Maybe he's improved a little bit. He's getting tons of strikeouts, throwing 99 on his fastball average again. He's been really good. You would like to see him stay healthy. That has been an issue for him in the minor leagues when he was coming up. Health was a big problem. But this doesn't sound like it's an arm injury, and that's good news. It's a hip injury, so hopefully he's able to come back pretty soon. And if the Reds need him, because like we talked about earlier, right now the Reds are in first place, and it seems like not everything has gone right for them either. I mean, we talk about him, and Lodolo's been out some. Like they getting those guys back will be, that's a big deal. So hopefully Hunter Green will come back pretty soon.
Yeah, it does sound like he was pitching with this hip issue for at least a couple starts. So maybe it's just to the point where they're like, hey, let's just not risk it. Let's just get you healed up. And maybe it is only that couple weeks thing. So, if he was pitching with it, that's a little bit more of an encouraging sign, but still at the same time, you just never know
Yeah.
with when things can get set back or find something there that is a bigger issue that you just didn't know about. So
It's a good way to limit his workload just a little bit too.
Yeah.
If he's having some kind of nagging thing, you ought to sit him down. He's gonna blow past his career high in innings this year, and it is worth mentioning that just giving a couple weeks off could be helpful down the stretch for him.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump over to our filling out our All-Star ballot this year. So the first phase of the voting goes through starts next Monday. So this is the phase one ends Thursday. So if you want to get your votes in to pick who should be in vote for the starters, you'll have to do it by then. But sorry, one got put in here already. So we've picked a handful of guys from each position for the AL and NL, so we're not listing every single one, but let's go ahead and start in the American League at first base. The handful of guys that we want to talk about is Yandy Diaz from Tampa Bay, Ryan Noda from Oakland, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. from Toronto, Nate Lowe from Texas, and then Ty France or Anthony Rizzo were our last one we were debating between. But kind of looking over these guys, Matt, who would you kind of pick as your guy to as a first baseman?
Yeah, so a bunch of those guys have been good. Yandy Diaz is definitely my guy. He has a 161 WRC plus. His Statcast page has looked like ridiculous the last few years, and you wonder, is he going to be able to start hitting the ball in the air a little bit more, hit some, get for a little more power, and that's happened this year. He's got a 302 average, a 394 on base, a 522 slugging this year, which is insane. Hey, he has only played 61 games, but he's been unbelievable. It's worth talking about the other guys though. Ryan Noda has been a really big time revelation for Oakland or the A's, because we don't know if they're Oakland anymore. But this is his rookie year. He came over from the Dodgers in the offseason, and he's been really good. He's striking out a lot, but has a 397 on base. He's walking a ton, and he's been solid. Pretty good base running metrics, honestly, too, for him. Then you look at the other guys. I mean, Nathaniel Lowe has been really good. And I think we mentioned Ty France has been solid too. Anthony Rizzo, he's been pretty good. He's kind of struggled lately, but he's kind of worth being on the ballot. And I mentioned Vlad Jr., who's been pretty decent at the plate, but I don't think I've ever seen somebody with as bad a defensive metrics as him. So it's pretty crazy. But he, you'd like to see him just hit a little bit better. I mean, he's been good, but I mean, it's kind of frustrating. You had that year a couple years ago where he's had like a 160 something WRC plus, and you thought, man, this guy is really taking off, and it's just kind of been stagnant since then. So hopefully he gets it figured out at some point soon. But definitely Yandy Diaz is my guy in the American League first base.
Yeah, I think Yandy Diaz is probably the easy pick. On the Ryan Noda thing, he was a Rule 5 pick this year.
Yeah,
That's how he came over. So that's a cool story there. Weird stat with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well. He doesn't have a homer at home yet this year.
it's crazy.
He's hit 239 with zero
And
homers at Rogers Center, and they moved the fences
I,
in and the dimensions of the fence even to make it more of a hitter friendly
I
ballpark.
know, and it already was a hitter friendly park,
Yeah.
so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, he's batting 308 on the road. It's incredibly weird the season Vlad Jr.'s had, and with how bad his defensive metrics are, you have to wonder if maybe here coming into later in the season if they decide to put Brandon Belt at first
I,
because you have him already. He's been DHing. The way to get
yeah,
him in the lineup, I mean, you keep both those bats in the lineup, but you put Belt, who's a much better defender, at first base there, and let Vlad DH a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, Yandy Diaz is kind of the easy pick here at first base in the American League. So let's go ahead and jump over to the National League, where I think there might be a little bit more of an argument here. But we have Pete Alonso, Freddie Freeman, Paul Goldschmidt, Matt Olson, and Christian Walker. So, Matt, who would you pick out of that handful of people to be your National League first base nominee?
well, I mean, I think the easy pick's Freddie Freeman. He's been extremely good. A 157 WRC plus. He's hit 324 with a 404 on base, 554 slugging. His, he's such a steady, consistent hitter. He's actually stolen 9 bases this year, which is
Yeah.
like probably close to a career high, if not a career high. But his defense has declined some, but it's still fine at first base. Like it's not like he's a Vlad Jr. level negative at first base. Like he's still pretty good there. So I think he's definitely the guy. Paul Goldschmidt's been really, really good as well this year. He's got a 143 WRC plus. He hasn't been quite the same as he was last year, which we kind of expected coming into the year. But he's still been so good. 344. I mean, a 289 average, 381 on base, 502 slugging, 2.5 WAR. Christian Walker's been awesome for the Diamondbacks. We knew that coming in. He was probably going to be really good again. He's got a 125 WRC plus, which is probably on the lower end for all these first basemen we're talking about. But man, his defense is incredible at first base, to where like it's hard to have like a net positive defensive value as a first baseman just because of the positional penalty. But he's got it. Like he's really good there. And then Pete Alonso, 22 home runs, is really good. He's missed some games recently, but not the average is kind of low, not getting on base a ton, 322 on base, but he's hitting the ball hard, hitting a lot of homers. Matt Olson's probably worth mentioning. He's been pretty decent. He's hit a lot of home runs as well. And then Lamont Wade's worth mentioning to me too. He's been awesome. So 147 WRC plus for him. But Freddie Freeman's definitely the pick here. I think it's probably kind of like the American League. It's hard to argue against it.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against him. There, you could mention those other guys we did. Goldschmidt, Christian Walker. Even Lamont Wade. Pete, if he hadn't missed time, would probably be more in the conversation. But I think with the impact Freddie's been able to do so far this year, I think he's kind of the easy pick at first base as well. So let's go ahead and jump over to the American League second base, and our handful of people are Marcus Semien, Whit Merrifield, Brandon Drury, and Gleyber Torres.
Yeah, shorter list here, as there haven't really been a ton of really good second basemen, at least at the plate. You look at Marcus Semien is probably my pick here. He's been really good, 277 average, 340 on base, 462 slugging. He has struggled over the last month or so, and over the last 2 weeks, it's been really bad. But his defense is awesome at second base. He's definitely the front runner for Gold Glove, and his base running's really good. He's stolen 7 bases. The metrics line up really well for him there, and the offense has been good. He does have a fairly low BABIP, so 301 is around league average, and I think that typically he's run a little bit higher than that. So maybe he has had a tiny bit of bad luck lately, but he's been such a good player, almost 3 WAR on the season, just a real well-rounded player. I do want to bring up Brandon Drury because the Angels have, they need that depth. They've struggled to bring in guys who really contribute outside of Trout and Ohtani. And Brandon Drury's been a guy who has come in and really taken off this year. 1.5 WAR, 120 WRC plus. He's hit 12 home runs. He leads second base, tied for the lead for home runs for second baseman in the American League. He's been really solid. Whit Merrifield's been really good. 18 stolen bases. He's kind of the same guy he was back when he was good with the Royals. He hit he doesn't hit a lot of power, but he gets on base really well. 364 on base, and he runs the base as well. 18 stolen bases. He's kind of a prototypical leadoff hitter, honestly, that you would see, classic leadoff hitter. And then Gleyber Torres is defensively not very good. Base running's not great, but he's hit pretty well this year, so he's worth bringing up. He does have a 256 average, 331 on base, 439 slugging. That's a 114 WRC plus. So he's kind of worth putting on the list. He's probably been the Yankees' best hitter outside of Judge. So maybe Rizzo, but the Marcus Semien should probably run away with this one.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to Semien and Brandon Drury. The season Whit Merrifield's having, I think, should be recognized more than I think it has been so far. But Semien and Drury, I think it's kind of a tale of two different stories. Semien started the season incredibly hot. He's cooled off lately. Brandon Drury has started the season very ice cold and then has picked it up as of late. I think they're good stories for either one, but I think Semien's edge with him, being one of the leaders on that Texas team and being better defensively, kind of gives him a little bit of the nod there at American League second base for me. So looking over at the National League side, we have Luis Arias, who is still hitting 400 for those of you who don't know. Ozzy Albies, Ketel Marte, Jonathan India, and Thairo Estrada.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting one because I think that Luis Arias is going to run away with it. And if you're hitting 400, it's hard to argue with that. Like, he's been really good, obviously. I will say that Thairo Estrada has got a half a win more of WAR than Luis Arias so far. He's got a 2.6 WAR. Luis Arias is at a 2.1. Luis Arias' base running is really bad. The defense is really bad. He's really a one-trick pony. He's just so good at contact hitting. I mean, 400 average. Like, come on. Thairo Estrada, though, he's got a 341 on base, has 466 slugging, 120 WRC plus. He's hit really well, and the defense has been awesome. And he's also stolen 17 bases. Now, obviously, I think the vote goes to Arias just because hitting 400 is insane. But it is worth bringing up. Thairo Estrada has more WAR. If you go down the list, mentioned Ketel Marte. He's been really good, 127 WRC plus for him. Ozzy Albies has hit for a lot of power, a 509 slugging percentage. The on base is still a little bit low with him. He's honestly been pretty unlucky at the plate, too. He only has a 261 batting average on balls in play. So that might be something to look out for a little bit more in the second half of the season. But I think you definitely are looking at Luis Arias being the guy here at second base in the National League.
Yeah, I think you could make the argument for Marte or Thairo Estrada, but it's just so hard to pick against a guy who's hitting 400 at the time. Like, we've never seen it in our lifetime, and it's a feat where it just deserves the recognition, the vote at the moment. But jumping over to the American League third base, where you have Matt Chapman, Josh Jung, Isaac Paredes, Jose Ramirez, and Rafael Devers.
Yeah, this has been an interesting group this year. Jose Ramirez, I think, is probably going to be the guy. Him or Josh Jung, they're both really good. Jose Ramirez has kind of more of the star power. Like, he's been the superstar for a while now. Josh Jung as a rookie has come in and he's been a really big piece for the Texas Rangers. 284 average, 339 on base, 509 slugging. He's broken out this year. I think in the big preseason, I kind of said he was one of the guys I was worried about just because he hasn't been able to be healthy. They're going to rely on him. This team that's supposed to be contending, they're going to rely on him at third base to be a key part of that lineup. Well, they've hit. It's part of the reason the Rangers have been so good is because Josh Jung has been really good this year. And then you look at Isaac Paredes has been really solid for 139 WRC plus. I mean, that's kind of average for a Ray, but still, he's been really good this year. Matt Chapman had a hot start. He's been pretty good. His defense has rebounded. That was kind of the metrics on that were kind of weird to start the season. He's always been just this elite defender, and the start of the season, the metrics were kind of down on his defense, but it's rebounded, and he's been solid. 118 WRC plus for him with that elite defense. And then you look at Rafael Devers. He's kind of worth mentioning. He's been better lately at the plate than he had been. He kind of had a rough start. He only has a 305 on base percentage, but he has hit 17 home runs, which leads third baseman in the American League. And I mean, he's got a really low batting average on balls in play. I think he's probably in for a big second half. Just kind of slow start for him this year. But if I had to vote, this is a hard one because I think Josh Young might be my vote just because of what he's meant to the Rangers this year. Whereas Jose Ramirez has been really good. Both of them should be on the All-Star team.
Yes.
But I think I'm probably would go Josh Young.
Yeah, I think my vote leans Jung as well, and it might be a little bit of a thing, but because of him being able to do this as a rookie so far, I think means a little bit more. I mean, we know J Ram's a star, and it's not to take away from what he's done, but Josh Jung has come in as the highly touted prospect who was injured last year, wasn't sure he was going to come up. People were questioning if he was going to be, the future part of the future of the Texas Rangers at one point, and now he's came in and pretty much put a deserving all-star candidacy up on. So I think Josh Jung gets our vote, if you're okay with that.
I think I'm good with it.
All right, so Josh Jung it is. So looking over at the National League side, the three people we really had was Nolan Arenado, J.D. Davis, and Ryan McMahon.
There's one more guy that I forgot to put on our list too.
All right.
So I'll mention him in a minute, but
I think I know where that's going.
Yeah. So, but I think that you look at this group, and J.D. Davis has been really good this year, 134 WRC plus, and his defense has been so good this year. In the past, his defense has really been what's held him back. He was kind of a positionless guy. The Mets didn't know where to play him. He's never been a positive defender. Last year, he was a negative 8.5 defensive value. And that's really been why the Mets that's why the Mets traded him. And of course they traded him for Darren Ruff, which was just really, really stupid. And I said last year that was stupid, but, JD Davis has been awesome this year for the Giants. You look at Ryan McMahon, he's been really good. He's got a very high batting average on balls in play, so I don't know if it's sustainable, but so far this year, 277 average, 356 on base, 511 slugging. He's walking a pretty good bit, 120 WRC plus. He plays great defense at third base, and he plays a little bit of second base too, I believe. 12 home runs has been nice. Nolan Arenado had that super slow start, but he's gotten a lot better over the last month or two. Definitely back to what we expected coming into the season. He's now up to a 120 WRC plus on the year. His defense has been uncharacteristically suspect on the metrics wise, but I think just those metrics can be noisy. I'll be surprised if Nolan Arenado is a negative defender for the rest of the year, but he's definitely worth mentioning here. And then the guy that we should have mentioned to start with, Jeimer Candelario, and he's probably not going to get the nod because the bat's not quite as good as a couple of these other guys this year, but Jeimer Candelario leads WAR for third baseman. He's been insane defensively this year. His base running's been really solid, and at the plate, he's got a 113 WRC plus. And I think all three of us, me, Damian, and of course David, who's not here tonight, we all talked about in the offseason how we were just puzzled as to why the Tigers would just not tender him. Like, he's obviously a pretty talented player who he didn't have a great year last year, but like it's not like he was blocking anybody with the Tigers, and it's not like the Tigers were trying to upgrade or they just got rid of him for no reason. Like, it wasn't like he was going to make a ton of money in arbitration or something, and Washington picks him up, and he's got 2.2 WAR on the season. So I think the pick, though, I think it's going to be J.D. Davis, just because he's been the best hitter of third baseman in the National League. The defense has improved. I think it's got to be J.D. Davis right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. You know, back to the Candelario thing, it was head scratching, and like you said, we mentioned it, and you know, it's kind of giving the Nationals a piece where they might get some value out of it at the deadline. You know, because he only signed, I think it was the 1 year deal, or
Yeah,
was he the one that signed the 1 year with like the low option or something?
I'm not sure.
I know they had one of those deals, but um, you know, as far as the vote is concerned, I was thinking it was JD Davis or Ryan McMahon, and I think you swayed my vote to JD Davis there um, with it. So we'll go him there, and then let's go over to the American League shortstop, where our three people we had was Bo Bichette, Wander Franco, and Corey Seager.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because Corey Seager has not played enough games to be qualified, but when he's played, he has been absolutely out of his mind. And I want to take a little bit of credit, as I did say that Corey Seager was my dark horse MVP pick. I said Otani was probably going to win MVP, but that Seager was kind of my dark horse. And in 41 games, he has put up 2.2 WAR, and he has a 187 WRC plus, 358 average, a 414 on base, 642 slugging, 10 home runs, and that, like I say, 41 games. So, I think Wander Franco gets the nod because Wander Franco has broken out this year. He's got a 130 WRC plus. The defense has been insane. 24 stolen bases. He's been awesome. Bo Bichette's been really good too. The defense has been, kind of average for a shortstop, but maybe a little below average for a shortstop. But he's hitting really well. 317 average, 348 on base, 508 slugging. He's hit 14 home runs. I think Wander Franco gets the nod just off of the fact that he's stolen all these bases. So the base running's been so much better, and the defense. He's just a more well-rounded player. Whereas Bichette's really kind of an offensive-minded shortstop who's solid. But and you can't really go wrong with either one of them. But Corey Seager, he really deserves a shout out. I hope he keeps this up all year because that's big time what he's done so far.
I'm picking Seager just because I want to.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. You know, when I think it really comes down to it, we've had this conversation. I think it was just a couple weeks ago. We were talking about Bichette and Wander. Maybe that was off the show, but you know, Bichette's been so insane offensively, but I think Wander's probably just with as good a defense as he's had, and the stats aren't really all that far behind Bo Bichette. And being as much better base runner and stealing all those bases, I think the nod kind of goes to Wander, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So let's go ahead and jump over to the National League shortstop, where our candidates are Orlando Arcia, Geraldo Perdomo, Dansby Swanson, and Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah, so this is another one. It's a little bit similar to that last one. As you look at the National League shortstops, and out of the guys who are, out of the guys who we have at the top of our list, like two of them, Perdomo and Arcia, haven't played that much. Arcia had the injury, for his first for about a month. He missed with a hairline fracture in his wrist, and then of course Geraldo Perdomo. I think it's going to really penalize him because his thing is they've been platooning him a lot. But you look at Dansby, he's been really good this year. His defense has been awesome. The offense has been good. It's been different for him. He's not hitting for much power at all, but he's been getting on base a lot, which is kind of the opposite of what we've seen from him over the past couple of years, where Dansby Swanson was this guy he was a really strikeout or home run type hitter for a shortstop, especially, and he's kind of this year he's kind of gone to more of a contact approach where he's taking a lot of pitches, walking a lot. He is still striking out a pretty good bit, but 110 WRC plus on the season. Orlando Arcia though, he's got a 404 BABIP, so that 51 game, that smaller sample size might really hurt him. But man, he's been so good. 2.3 WAR in 51 games and a 341 average, 398 on base, a 492 slugging. I mean, he's been awesome. And then Xander Bogaerts has been pretty solid, a 110 WRC plus. His defense, it's worth mentioning, his defense has been much improved over the last couple of years, and this year it's continued to be that way. So he's worth a mention. But I, it's hard for me to go against Orlando Arcia, as good as he's been. I mean, Dansby, I think you could make a definite argument for Dansby just because he's played 71 games. But, man, Orlando Arcia has been awesome.
Yeah, I think Arcia has been awesome. But like I think as you mentioned, I think it really just comes down to the 20 gap in games. Like Arcia has been played 51, Dansby's played 71. Now Arcia on this pace would have more WAR than Dansby at
Oh
that
yeah,
point, but at the end of the day, availability is also part of the key, and we knocked Seager with it on the
yeah,
shortstops in the
yeah,
American League.
and that's fair because I mean, if Orlando Arcia had played 20 more games, he might have been on a little bit of a cold streak.
Yeah,
It's fair.
yeah.
So
So I think the vote probably goes to Dansby right now, but I think Arcia absolutely should be in the conversation for it. So we'll go ahead and go Dansby there. So let's move over to catcher in the American League. We had Jonah Heim, Salvador Perez, and Adley Rutschman.
yeah, catcher in the American League this year has not been pretty. But I think that it's been difficult. It's difficult to pick between Jonah Heim and Adley because I think Adley has DH'd some,
Yeah,
on which hurts his defensive value. So Jonah Heim's got a lot more WAR, but obviously they're just doing that for Adley because then he can catch every day. They're just doing it for him to, just keep him fresh, especially with him being a young guy. Um, so I think you probably go with Jonah Heim. Jonah Heim's defense has been amazing. He's been really good at the plate on that team. Adley Rutschman does have a 131 WRC plus though. It's really tough between those two. And Salvador Perez is worth mentioning. He's been solid at the plate. His own base percentage is pretty bad, but he's 14 home runs has definitely been impressive for him. Um, the defense is just not good, but I mean, he's DHing a lot, so it's not that big of a deal. But I definitely think that I think I'm going to let you decide between Adley and Jonah Heim because I'm kind of torn on that one.
Oh, gee, thanks. Um, like you mentioned, the Jonah Heim's defensive value has been insane. Adley's also a really, very, very good defender as well. But when you just look at it as well, they're both about the same average. They both have about the same amount of home runs. The OPS is a little higher for Adley, but Jonah Heim's been more of a run producer for
Yeah.
that Texas ball club. I mean, he has almost 20 more RBIs. I It's hard. It's a coin toss. I mean, you can literally flip a coin on this one, and I don't think anyone has an argument either way. But I think just because of being a little bit more of a run producer and being more of the full-time catcher just at the moment, I think Jonah Heim is probably the pick here. Now, with that being said, our buddy Hank is absolutely going to roast me because Adley's going to go on like some tear and then be the notorious, like easily all-star pick. But I think just at the moment, I think Jonah probably gets the nod there. But let's look over to the National League, and we have Sean Murphy, Will Smith, JT Realmuto, and Elias Diaz.
Yeah, this is a pretty good group. I do think it's worth mentioning William Contreras as well, as he's been incredible defensively this year, which has kind of been the knock on him in the past. The bat's been really nice, but man, this is such a great group of catchers in the National League too. Like we talked about how bad the American League catching has been, like the National League catchers: Sean Murphy, Will Smith, JT Realmuto, Francisco Alvarez, Elias Diaz, William Contreras. Like they've been really good. Travis d'Arnaud's been really good too, even though he's a backup. But I mean, I think you got to go with Sean Murphy. He's got a 148 WRC plus. He has just been by far the best defensive catcher in the National League this year. He's throwing out base runners like crazy. I mean, he's just been awesome. And you look at him, Will Smith's been awesome at the plate. They've been really. It's hard to choose between the two of them at the plate so far. I mean, Will Smith's got a little bit higher on base. Sean Murphy's slugging a little bit higher. Both of them have not played a huge workload of games because of, Will Smith had some injury, and Sean Murphy, they've really been giving a lot of rest to him. Especially with the fact that Travis d'Arnaud's still really good too, so they can afford to do that. But I do think I think Sean Murphy's got to be the pick here.
Yeah, and Murphy is dealing with a little bit of a hamstring thing right now, but I absolutely disagree with you. I think Will Smith needs to be the case, and that's strictly because I'm a Dodger fan. So, boo.
Oh,
No, but I mean, really, imagine when we went into this, when the offseason happened in this trade, and we were second, like, hey, Sean Murphy's going to break out when he gets to a place that's not Oakland. And then he goes to Atlanta, and we're like, Sean Murphy's going to break out. And then here it is. He's broke out, and he has a 148 WRC plus now, and he's been, I mean, insane defensively, which he had always been, but now that he's on a team that's winning and he's been able to produce more offensively, you're seeing the talent that Sean Murphy really has. And here I was thinking, that finally Will Smith's going to get the all-star starter nod that he has been deserving for a few years now. And then Sean Murphy just comes in and was like, nah, son, it's mine. So I think it is Sean Murphy, as good as defensively as he's been, the WARs, not all that. It's like a half a win, really. And I would have thought it would have been a little bit more, playing a little bit more games and being that good defensively and very close offensive, statistics.
I think the base running metrics are really what's kind of made it closer. And I mean, I have a hard time believing that Sean Murphy's base running has been that bad, but I mean, I don't know.
Stats don't lie.
Yeah, I mean, base running metrics do lie sometimes. I don't know about lie, but
this case they don't lie, and that's I'm just being totally biased here. But let's go ahead and jump over to the American League outfield now, where we had Randy Arozarena, Aaron Judge, Ezekiel Duran, should be mentioned, Luis Robert, Austin Hayes, Mike Trout, and Josh Lowe.
Yeah,
you get to pick 3 of these, by the way.
Yeah, so the difficult thing is to know whether or not Aaron Judge will be back. He's only played 49 games, but he's still been the highest WAR in the American League for outfielders. Like, he's put a 2.8 WAR in just 49 games. But Luis Robert's actually leading out of qualified hitters, leading in WAR in the American League, which is kind of awesome. Randy Arozarena's tied with him, but I think you definitely start off with Randy Arozarena. He's meant so much to the Rays this year. He's got a 156 WRC plus, 288 average, a 405 on base, a 484 slugging. The on base is awesome. He's got a 13% walk rate, which Randy Arozarena was not a guy who you would think would end up having a 13% walk rate in his career. So that's definitely somebody I would put in there. It's tough with the other guys because, I mean, I think Luis Robert kind of deserves it. Alex Verdugo kind of deserves it. Mike Trout kind of deserves it. It's hard to pick against Yordan Alvarez. Adolis Garcia has been really good. He's got a 10% walk rate, which is crazy because that's been like a huge hit on him his whole career. His has been like 4 or 5% most of his career,
and he leads all outfielders with the RBIs.
Yeah, he's been really good. So I think it's tough with this. Randy Arozarena is definitely one, and I think I might go with. I think for Verdugo maybe, and I mean Mike Trout. It's hard to pick against Mike Trout just because he's Mike Trout. I mean, I don't know.
It's hard to vote against Trout. I think Trout probably has to be in there just because even though he hasn't been
a down year, but man,
yeah, it's a down year, but it's still one of the best players in the game. Alex Verdugo has been great as well. So is Masataka Yoshida. We mentioned Adolis Garcia having, the lead in RBIs. It would easily be Aaron Judge if he was going to be healthy. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, he's going to be in the game and he's probably going to be the starter just because of the fan voting. But, another name we didn't mention, Josh Lowe. He's been like the 3rd or 4th best outfielder on this team, but I mean, like, Josh Lowe has had a breakout year. He's hitting 284, 11 homers, 41 RBIs, 840 OPS as well. Like, he's been really good, but has he really been all-star worthy in the breakout year? It's hard. I honestly think it should go to Luis Robert. I think it should be Randy, Trout, and Luis Robert for us.
Yeah, I mean, Luis Robert, it's hard to bet against him. The only thing that he's got 18 home runs. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to bet against him. I'm not going to argue with that. They should have Luke Rayleigh on the ballot too. I don't know why they don't, but he's
Yeah,
got a 160 WRC plus. So
yeah,
I mean, he wouldn't be our pick because he's only played 55 games and he's still, but wow.
yeah. He's been insane. So looking over at the National League side, we have Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, Corbin Carroll, Fernando Tatis Jr., Juan Soto, and Christian Yelich. So tell me if any of those names actually surprise you that they're on our ballot.
I mean, Christian Yelich, of course, does, but we were going to talk about that. But I Corbin Carroll does a little bit too, just because you think the first half of his season as a rookie, he would be good, but maybe not quite this good. You think if he has this huge rookie year, it would probably be more in the second half. He really starts to catch fire as he gets adjusted. He's just immediately been like the best player in baseball, or the best player in the not named Otani. Like him and Acuna have both been just absolutely incredible this year. Acuna, I think, just stole 2 bases in 1 inning a second ago too, for the Braves. So might have been one, but they've been like both of those guys have just been out of their minds. They both lead the National League. They're well, I think Corbin Carroll currently has .1 WAR more than Acuna. They're both tops in the National League. Mookie Betts has been awesome. He's always awesome. Um, he has hit really well. And he's fielded really well, and he's ran the bases really well, like Mookie Betts always does. And then you look at, I mean, Fernando Tatis Jr. is worth mentioning. He's only played 52 games, but he's taken to the outfield, played awesome defense in right field. He's hit really well, 147 WRC plus, and he's stolen 12 bases. He's back to being a superstar. And then Juan Soto's turned it around. He's got a 411 on base percentage. He hadn't been quite as good as those other four, but he's been solid. And we did need to bring up Christian Yelich just because he's been so much fun to see him rebound this year. I did not realize how good he had been until looking at this before we started tonight. 2.2 WAR for him. His defense has been really good in left field. Um, his base running's been awesome. He's stolen 16 bases, and he's getting on base at a 366 clip. The power still hasn't fully come back to that 2018, 2019 MVP Christian Yelich form, but he's been so good this year. It's fun to see. I hope he gets on the All-Star team, but I don't think he should be a starter. I definitely am thinking Carroll, Acuna, Betts is the starters here.
Yeah, I think that the three starters are easily the picks here with Carroll, Betts, and Acuna. Had Tatis not missed all those games, I think he would have been more in the conversation here. Soto, had he not started very, very slow, and he's been insane as of late, but I think it's just a little bit too late there. And then, of course, watching Christian Yelich be good at baseball again, it's been really fun to see. He's always been a player that I enjoyed watching, and that 2019 MVP race between Yelich and Bellinger was some of the most fun baseball I've got to watch, and some of the most stressful as a Dodger fan and as a Cody Bellinger fan. But watching Yelich, kind of be back to at least not the same level of hitter, because like you mentioned, the power's not there, but I think he's got a lot of crap, and I don't think people have really went into how good he's actually been as of late. But so let's go ahead and move over to the American League DH, and it's going to be Shohei Ohtani. But the other names, Harold Ramirez and Brent Rooker, 2 names that we just felt deserved some shout out.
You know what? When it comes to the American League DH, I think we should vote somebody other than Shohei, because we could just put Shohei on this pitcher.
But we didn't even talk about pitchers, really.
Yeah. Well, we obviously there's no voting for pitchers, so but yeah, I mean, you look at Shohei, and I mean, it's just been insane this year at the plate. 300 average, 384 on base, 632 slugging. He's hit 24 home runs already. 3.1 WAR. That's as a DH, which is hard to put up a huge WAR total as a DH. Obviously, we're talking about DH right now and not the fact that he's also a pitcher, but we can talk about his merit of being on the All-Star team as a pitcher maybe in another episode when we talk about pitching a little bit or something. But yeah, he's been awesome. Brent Rooker has been fun as a guy who, has had a breakout to some level, he's had a huge breakout so far this year. He's come back to earth a little bit the last month. Well, I kind of put in to some level, but he's been awesome for the A's. 1.4 WAR. He has played a lot of outfield too. Harold Ramirez has been awesome for the Rays. Just list another guy who has just been hitting. He's got a 141 WRC plus, and but yeah, Shohei Ohtani, definitely, definitely the pick here.
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani as a DH right now is 5th in all of baseball in WAR. It literally as a DH, that is insane. Like
it's out of control.
The top 5 are Corbin Carroll, Ronald Acuna Jr., Wander Franco, Freddie Freeman, and then Shohei Ohtani, who is tied with Sean Murphy is tied at 3.1. But I mean, literally as a DH, that is insane to think about that he has that much. And that doesn't count his pitching WAR. That is just his hitting statistics.
Yeah.
He is 3.1. He leads the major leagues in homers. Like he leads them in RBIs. Like he leads in, or he's what is he? He's 3rd in WRC plus. Like it's insane what Shohei Ohtani's been able to do. We've talked about him so much, but I think he's obviously easily the pick for the DH spot there. But jumping over to the National League side, our 3 were Jorge Soler, Jock Peterson, and JD Martinez.
Yeah, Jorge Soler has had an awesome bounce back year. It seems like every time he has a bad year, he bounces back the following year. He had that breakout 2019 where he hit 48 home runs, and then in 2020 he was horrible for Kansas City. 2021 he gets traded midseason to the Braves and he wins the World Series MVP. 2022 signs with the Marlins, was horrible, and 2023 we're back to being good again. And he has been awesome this year. He has hit 260 with a 363 on base, a 560 slugging, 21 homers, a 149 WRC plus. He has been so good for the Marlins this year. He's been a big reason why their offense has been not good, but not last, which has been good to have with their pitching staff being as good as they are. You got Luis Arias getting owned in front of him about half the time because he's got a 450 on base. And then Jorge Soler is driving him in a lot because he's hitting a lot of home runs and he's hitting for power and he's been really good. So good for Jorge Soler. The other guys, Jock Peterson's been really good. He's missed some time, but, he's got a 141 WRC plus. So that's been, good to see. And, you look at JD Martinez. He's had a solid year as well. 257 average, 301 on base isn't great, but the slugging has been awesome. He's hit the ball hard again, 578 slugging, 16 home runs. So he's been a big piece in the middle of the lineup for the Dodgers. So good, good on them. But Jorge Soler's got to be the pick here, in my opinion.
Yeah, the breakout I can't even say it's a breakout, but what Jorge Soler has been able to do to bounce back, that's probably the better word.
Yep.
And be a force for that Marlins team, who as of right now is 2nd in the division standings in the NL East. JD Martinez has found the power that he seemed to have lost last year. Reuniting him with Robert Van Scoyoc has been, a dream in the making for them. Jock Peterson, he's so dang good, but them platooning him just hurts if he was able to play every single game and had, these statistics, you might have a little bit more of an argument, but just him being able to not, play against lefties pretty much. I think it makes it pretty easy that Jorge Soler should be the thing, but I mean, it's hard not to look at Joey Votto, who has a 2.417 OPS so far, and say that you don't want to pick that guy. He's only had 3 at bats, but still, Jorge Soler, I think it's the easy pick there. So, kind of just running back through it so far. I'll run down the American League side and then I'll jump over to the National League side. We have Yandy Diaz at first base, Marcus Semien at second base, Josh Jung at third base, Wander Franco at shortstop, Jonah Heim at catcher, Randy Arozarena, Luis Robert, Mike Trout as our outfield, and Shohei Ohtani. And if you guys were counting, we have 3 Rangers and 3 Rays on our American League ballot there, with 2 Angels. So not a lot of love through a lot of teams going around over there. But the National League side, we have Freddie Freeman at first base, Luis Arias at second base, J.D. Davis at third base, Dansby Swanson at shortstop, Sean Murphy at catcher, Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, Corbin Carroll is our outfield, and our designated hitter is Jorge Soler. So there's our 2023 All-Star ballot for Batfield Podcast. You got any thoughts on the whole our ballot or whatever?
I think it's pretty good. Obviously we still have a few more weeks, and that final phase of voting will be big. It'll be narrowed down to just a few options, so that'll be, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But definitely good selections this year. Some cool surprises. Some cool bounce backs, and definitely fun. I always like to talk about the pitching too. It doesn't seem to get quite as much attention just because there's no voting for it. But maybe in a couple weeks we could talk about who we'd like to see on the pitching staff for both teams. But definitely, I like the ballot. I think it's really solid. So.
Yeah, so phase 1 of voting goes through this Thursday, like I mentioned. Phase 2 is only 4 days, so it starts next Monday and goes through next Thursday. So we'll talk about the finalists. I think it gets down to 2 or 3 per position. We'll talk about that and kind of everything as we get to next week, and then it'll basically the restart of the voting will happen then. So maybe we are able to talk about the pitchers at that point. But before we jump over to Players of the Week and wrap it up, talking about the All-Star Game, we wanted to, I was supposed to do it last week and I totally forgot, but this year we are going to try and live stream the All-Star Game on our YouTube channel. We are hopefully going to all have face cams, hope to have a couple guests come in. We have to get with some people and line it up, but hopefully to live stream it, connect with you guys a little bit more. It'll be free on our YouTube channel, and hopefully we can just spread the word about it. And it'll be a fun time, our first ever live stream, and hopefully we're able to connect with you guys a little bit more, and you guys get to see more of our personality than just behind the microphone a little bit. Got anything to say on that one, Matt?
Oh yeah, I think it's exciting. I think it'll be fun. I've been, wanting to try that out for a while. Haven't gotten around to it. I do still need to figure out a face cam, but I'll get it figured out before then, and it'll be fun.
Yeah. So we'll keep mentioning it as we get close to it. Maybe we even look into possibly doing a home run derby one too. We'll see, but not to get too ahead of ourselves. So let's go ahead and jump over to Players of the Week this week. So Matt, who do you have for your player this week?
So my player of the week this week is going to be Eddie Rosario. He had a big time week. In 5 games this week, he hit 5 home runs. He hit 500 with a .636 on base percentage and a 1.438 slugging. That is a 398 WRC plus. It seems like Eddie Rosario every year has like 2 weeks like this where he just gets hot and is absolutely unstoppable. Obviously as a Braves fan, remember that happening in the National League Championship Series. And, so sometimes you randomly get an Eddie Rosario get scorching hot for a week and you hope it happens at the right time. And for the Braves, it helped them to a 6-game winning streak this week. He didn't play in one of the games. I think Pilar played in one of the games, but he's been awesome over the past week, and he's been a lot better this month. He's just that streaky type of player. He's kind of a league average type outfielder, but when he gets on a hot streak, there's not much stopping him. So that was a really fun week for him. But who did you pick, Damien?
Speaking of hot streaks,
yeah.
The guy that I picked, we just talked a lot about him. We've done a lot of talk on the show about him. It's Shohei Ohtani. He single-handedly pretty much went in this weekend to Texas and vaulted the Angels over the Rangers in that series. He had 4 homers. It felt like 8 homers. I'm not going to lie. Like every time you turned around, it was like Shohei was hitting another homer. Cut one day, he had two homers. Some of the hardest hit balls and farthest hit balls to the opposite field that has ever been recorded. I think it was balls hit 115 that have gone like 450 feet from left-handed hitters. All of them have been to the pull side. And then there's just like one random one that was in left center field, and it was Shohei Ohtani this past weekend. Like what he's been able to do. And also he had a very good start. I think it was 6 innings, gave up 3 runs. 2 or 3 runs at least, against the Rangers as well. And we can't talk enough about him, but what he was able to do, going in and basically single-handedly carrying the Angels over the Rangers in that division matchup that is going to be a tight race. It was big time.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a comment. He also pitched. I don't know if you mentioned it.
I did.
Yeah, sorry. He pitched really well. I mean, that's just such a big deal. Like the Angels, you're looking at them right now as being a playoff team if the season ended today, and their record is really good. They got a 41-33 record, and they needed that win over that series over the Rangers to really establish themselves and say, hey, we're not just beating the Royals. We can really beat some good teams too. And they took it to the Rangers in that series. They really should have won all the games. If I remember right, the other game was a game that they very easily could have won. So definitely a fun series there. And I hope we'll see if Shohei can keep it going.
Yeah, hopefully he can, and we'll be definitely talking more about him. But just wanted to give you guys an actual link before we head out of here. If you guys want to go find our YouTube channel to get ready for that, it's just YouTube, www.youtube.com/@the Batfoot all one word, 2 P's between flip and podcast. So go check it out there. Go subscribe over there so we can you guys can connect with us when we go live for the All-Star game. But anything else you want to wrap up the show on real quick?
Not too much. Just a couple weeks left here before the before the All-Star break, and next week David will be back. We'll have to do a breakdown one week, and then the other week maybe we can talk about the last few All-Star game players. Yeah, we're getting close to the All-Star game. That's a big time. Of course, after the All-Star game, you have the break, and then it's immediately trade season. So definitely going to be a busy month here. A lot of contenders separating themselves. A lot of pretenders, the Mets, following off. So, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a very interesting month.
Sound like you're getting a little cold there. You might want to go get that checked out.
The Mets suck. Sorry.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun run up to the All-Star game and then trade deadline season. Next week we'll talk about the finalists there, and then hit on some other stuff. The next week after that's July 4th, so we'll have to figure out if we're going to do an episode on the Monday or Wednesday or whatever. But it's going to be fun. I can't wait to get to it. But thank you guys for tuning in to episode 131 of the Batfoot podcast, and we'll catch you guys back next week.